Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 Pictures of Honey, our first reading of 2026. The beginning of our fifth year, I realized. I thought it was the fourth, but it would actually be the beginning of the fifth year of readings. So I'm so happy that you're all here with me, indulging me in this little dream I had of bringing poets together. Started once a month. That got to be a bit too much. So we're going to go every 2 months this year, a little bit more regularly. And I'm so pleased and happy to have these four people with us tonight that are going to start us off, um, help us start the new year with their words, but also help us maybe have a little respite from the world with our words tonight, which I think we all need. And so I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to each reader by reading just a couple lines of something from one of their poems that I feel that I was feeling today when I was. And I will be dropping their bios and links to their books and their websites in the chat. So please support them by buying their books and supporting their projects as well. So our first reader is going to be Subhaga Crystal Bacon. I have the great honor and pleasure of sometimes being in a writing group with Subhaga. And I know that her words, even in a draft that happens in 30 minutes, often move me. And I think they will move you tonight as well. And the line that I picked of Subhaga's to enter into our reading tonight is, "Light and color will dissolve with the day. I step into my boots. I face forward into what comes." Subhaga.
Thank you, Donna. Gosh, it's so wonderful to see so many friendly and familiar faces tonight. And what an absolute pleasure to be reading with these three poets, all of whom I just love and admire so much. And I'm really, really pleased to be with you. Um, Tonight, I'm going to read just a teaser from my new book, A Brief History of My Sex Life, which will come out on January 18th, because there will be two launch readings online where you can have a deeper dive, one on the 18th and one on the 28th. And then I'm going to finish with some new work. And I think they're all poems that I wrote in the group, the very generative group I'm in with Donna. I want to dedicate my portion of the reading tonight to the memory of my friend Jennifer Martelli. Vinny, thank you for coming. And to Renee Nicole Good. While I was working on finalizing the manuscript for my book, I was reading the Plath bio, Red Comet, which I often think I could really have lived without reading, but nevertheless, it brought Plath really fully forward for me, and she appears in a number of the poems and a couple of the ones that I'm going to read tonight. I'm reading just a few poems from each of the three sections of the book. This one has two lines from Three Women. Before spring comes. -3 this morning on the cusp of the halfway point to spring, Imbolc from the belly of the mother, where seeds begin to stir. I too rise from bed, turn on the heat in my room, lift the thermal shades to let in the light. Oxalis leaves quiver on the shelf. In the cold air, the smell of unlit incense from the corner altar where I sat mornings to meditate and pray to many armed gods, teachers alive and dead. I move through the house, welcoming in winter. On the sunlit hill, the raised tracks of deer, a stitchery of life moving across wet snow. I am solitary as grass. What is it I miss? Shall I ever find it, whatever it is? This first cluster are all sonnets. It's an obsession that Jen and I particularly shared, and it's one form I still go back to pretty regularly. You do not do anymore, Black Shoe, Sylvia Plath, Daddy. Stiff black leather, my new Doc Martens are roomy in the heel, but press on my left bunion, unpoetic part of my poet's foot. He wore black leather boots. curled up at the ruined toes, slashed to free his own bony growth, an eye slit with the dingy white cornea of sock. How he hobbled despite the shoe cut open, the pained gait, old then, nearly toothless, unwashed on the best of days, rheumy-eyed when he came to live with us, widowed, still our grandfather, still cruel. The music I loved, fishwife call. My hair looked like someone threw clamshells at my head. How vulnerable an old man can be, dying slowly from hidden bleeds, stomach eaten with cancer, and coughing from where once were lungs. The old Mercury with its creaking doors that took him to poker, lunch. What he did to me and when, decades passed, locked inside memory's trunk. Petrichor. I came of age around water in New Jersey, lakes, streams, boggy ground, dank of wet pine and soil. An hour's drive away, the shore, Sea Isle, Ocean City, Margate, Avalon. We all drove its suture-like highways, Turnpike, Parkway, Delsey Drive from the Delaware to the sea, Route 40, Main Street of America from Utah to Atlantic City. We drove and drove, each in our own space, music and the dash lights as the night slid by, greased and shimmering as an oil spill. Chet Baker crooned about moon and sand, the aftermath of love, what the night had left. I heard the smell of rain, familiar as the beat of my own salty blood and broken heart. Only now, on the other side of youth, I discover when the night has left us, will the spell remain? Yes, it still carries the scent of rain. I borrowed heavily for that dashboard image from a wonderful poem by my very dear friend and former teacher, Stephen Dunn, called The Sacred, which I really recommend to you if you've not read it. I'm just realizing how many poems about rain there are in this book. It's funny how you don't see these things until well after. In memoriam of past rain. Once I spent a frigid weekend in a dank, unheated room in Atlantic City's Hotel Byron, back before casinos pushed out the indigent veterans of many wars. Memorial Day, parades of the old in uniform, their peaked hats over solemn faces, walking or wheeled. So last surviving soldier from this war or that, flags of cloud, bullets of drizzle. In the mildewed room, a woman I taught to find her clitoris and orgasm, that war she fought within herself, what country she claimed. Old, old now, this remembering, a lost name, a slim, almost childlike body locked against the knock of pleasure, the beckoning street, the salty, rain-drenched night, slick with broken light. Penumbra. Moondial, stake thrust into my vampire's heart, innocent predator, despoiled child, with a hunger I could not name or satisfy. This is the behavior of children who've been sexually abused. Images escape from the rim of sunspot, memory burrowed in the darker core. What if I am the light, decades long, elliptic, spun within like Saturn's rings, lingering winters broken by brief glimpses of what the sun has shown me. And then I'm going to read just a couple more from the book. These from the last section. After the psilocybin journey, I remember Tracy. A skull head with screws for teeth, toes curled, and his fingers bent so far they were invisible. A red and black room, velvet curtains, a carousel horse, a charge of pleasure, then shame. Psilocybin recovered memory. I am the yarn of my own remaking. Shades of purple bled out to what's stored and well buried under years. Where my body is bone of hip and pubis, muscle and tissue, only space between my navel and my thighs. The trouble spot erased, an open keyhole of faces, a series of shuttlecocks to sweep colors back and forth until, as Rembrandt said of his nudes, I want to pinch. And I did not pinch, but swept my hands between my hips and thighs to find my lap affirmed and firm with flesh. Like a key in a forgotten lock, it turned me toward a glint of light, ruffle of dress, and the lap of the man who raised my father. And then heat and suffocation beneath the comfort of weighted blanket, flailing arms. The watcher asks, "How are you doing?" I say, "Something happened." On his lap, where I am told I loved to climb, couldn't get enough, he touched me, or something in me touched in him what he couldn't or didn't resist. I can't be more clear. I was only 3, or if not 3, then 2, walking. No words for what happened, only fear flowering in my flesh, no longer seed. Pronominal, after Maggie Nelson's Bluets and the Argonauts. Maybe it's the dark wash denim and navy shirt so midnight on my skin, the way they make a rippled pool on a chair, how my eyes flare cobalt against my sunlit hair. Naked, I lay face down in floral sheets, the slow healing strokes of the oiled arm pressing me down. My breasts flatten, disappear, no longer woman, not man. Crescent scars, pectoral moons, healed blue gills to breathe. In this state, my body's a clean slate, and the word they sings like blue whale's song of home that calls me safely blue to them. All right, and then I'm going to just read a few new pieces just to close things out tonight. Thanks so much, all of you, for being here listening. Laura Cochia, look at you. I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. Winter spell. New snow, days before solstice. The dog lifted her nose and ran into the hills, emerging from morning fog. In the distance, I saw a black veil lift, a flock of ravens, and knew the smell was death. Following, I found a long smear of blood and hair on the track-worn ground. No drag marks, no bones. Something injured, leaving red prints on the white canvas of land. Today, 2 days into winter, we went down again, the long rutted road with its hidden sheaves of ice, and the dog ran off to eat the frozen remains of wound. Down in the ditch, with its frozen rainwater and gold mesh of leaves, a sudden ringing in the trees. A pileated woodpecker drove the flame of its head into cottonwood, bark flying. Whatever the dog smelled on the opposite bank has fled into the thicket. It is cold. Snow hangs in great bellied clouds over the mountains in the faded light. And then just 2 more. My dearest friend, the brilliant poet Jennifer Martelli, passed in September, and this has been a huge loss for me and for many of us. And I've written a number of elegies for Jen, and these next 2 are for her. A cold growing. And everywhere there is a white soil coming, carried sideways by wind and down by gravity, a pale inflection on its many cold lips. Bianca Stone, Old Bio in Snow. I woke crying yesterday about my dead friend, or for my dead friend, a kind of selfish grief to awaken without her name, her words in a green bubble on my sleeping phone. Today it snows in earnest, despite the warm air hovering between freeze and thaw. First, the flakes were tiny pellets that pinged on glass on my coat when I went out for wood. Now they fall in the soap flake size that means business. I woke crying yesterday about my dead friend, a white soil in my heart where whatever grows must first sleep beneath the blowing scatter of cold. I keep working on a poem in my head about Demeter, or maybe Persephone, about the way persistent weeds along the snow-pocked ditch bow themselves in a kind of white soil, how they curl, even the majestic mullein, its stem once studded with star-shaped flowers that bear hidden seeds, droops. I woke crying yesterday. The ground will freeze and stay frozen. Snow will accumulate week by week. A white soil in which my grief takes root, dies for a time before it sends up a new shoot, green as a girl released from the underworld. And then just this one last one. My body, this house. After the seismic shock, all the pillars in me broke. Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, and in your honor, Tuscan. Stacks of vertebrae held by their own weight shuddered and fell. My heart, that furnace full of mice instead of heat. They gnaw at the wires. What's attached misfires. All my windows commandeered, no longer see what's before me. Like the phone camera's swiveled lens, point inward where you remain. I'm sweeping this week instead of weeping, shoulder shingles to patch the roof. Look, I close off holes where light might come in or escape. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks
thank
everybody
you.
for being here.
Thank you so much, Subhaga, for those lovely pieces. I'm always just astonished by your language. Um, and I remember the draft of that White Soil poem and how beautiful to hear it completed tonight in honor of Jen. Um, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those, as well as the work from your new book, which I hope people will all go to get. Our next reader, I have never met really before, but I have admired her work for a long time, reading her online. Um, and I'm always really drawn by the way that Kathleen brings the natural world so easily to us through words. And the line I chose to introduce her of hers that I chose to introduce her with tonight is this one, again, something I kind of was finding meaning in today. Here, somewhere near, meaning blinks like a secret animal in its burrow. Kathleen?
I think Kathleen's muted.
No, she's not. I can't hear her though. Kathleen, I'm not sure what's happening, but it says you're unmuted, but no one can hear you. Subaga, would you check your participant list? Like she's unmuted on mine.
She's unmuted on mine as well.
Okay. Um,
She might need to pop out and pop
oh,
back
yeah.
in.
Lee says check your computer volume, Kathleen, perhaps. Do you have your computer volume turned off? Otherwise, we can go ahead and come back if we can't get it to work.
Technology gods are not with us tonight.
No, tonight is not great. Uh, oh, there she is.
Oh, how about now?
Yay! Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen.
I apologize. I'm going to be reading from my new book, Dressing in the Dark, which is a book about recovery from breast cancer, from the pandemic, and kind of facing my age and mortality. And I think of the book as a very hopeful book. And so I am going to share some of those poems, beginning with the first poem, which is an epigraph, serves as an epigraph for the whole. Um, and I hope gives you an idea of the sort of the tone of the book. It's called Reconstruction. First, a chimney rose from the rubble, then a stove stoked to a glow. The window frame grew panes, then curtains. A cat circled and slept in a sunny square on the floor. One room became two, one for a bed that grew, one pillow, then two, embroidered with roses. Step over step, a staircase climbed, and a handrail spun out of a polished spiral to upstairs rooms with walk-in closets and views over a waking garden. And I didn't even know I'd thrown the door open. I didn't even know there'd been a door. A number of these poems play with time, the sort of strangeness of time, being so close to my past, and a kind of scrim of the past over the present. And that's definitely going on in this poem called Five Paragraph Essay on Time. More than once, I blew off my high school essays to watch TV, set an alarm for 5 a.m., and dragged out of bed to a desk in the still dark living room window. Nervous about finishing, no chance to revise, I launched sentences with my blue pen like bodies jumping out of buildings on fire. The scene outside when I lifted my head shifted from my own reflection to a pencil sketch of a street and front yard, framed in my mother's proud bay window in our otherwise plain-faced house. The loops of my words leaned like they meant what they said. I'd look up to catch a light blink on, beams of a passing car, our big sycamore, then plunge again into my evidence, essay and morning emerging like bean sprouts in a milk carton. 50 years later, a car smashed through the bay window where I wrote and watched the dawn. We sold the house years ago. No one was home. But I sit at the center of destruction, writing and running out of time. This next poem is in the voice of my brain. The brain berates the heart. I'm the traveler in the family, while you cram the house like one of those hoarders on TV, stumbling between stacks of pancake mix and Christmas shit still in tags that leave no place to sleep but the car. Here we go again. Doors slam closed on a clean so quiet our ears begin to ring. Dials light up when I turn the key. I say, time to toss a match and gun the engine. You crane your neck and cry, go back. This is the first of a few poems that I wrote directly to my breast. Um, this one's, I actually have never read this one out loud, I don't think, so this will be the first. Your goodbye. In a deep, narcotized sleep, I turned one way, you the other. Then I woke in a nest of pillows with bandages for company, under my coat riding home, dozing, reading, stroking the cat, distracting myself with scarves around my neck, until at the end of a week, at the end of a glassy hall, the doctor's eyes directed mine to your picture, taken while I'd slept, my beloved, departed, unblinking breast in your first and last look back. And here's another one. When I was shopping for surgeons, I had a doctor tell me that I would never recover the feeling in the area of my lost breast, which is true. That's a fact. But there's something about the way she said that that really stuck with me in a way that I have felt myself trying to prove that wrong ever since I've started recovering. So this is called In My Hand. When the breast is taken, what remains is not unfelt, but unfeeling, unable to speak. Long marriage has taught me silence can be a reply. So touch can be like conversation I'm learning to live without. What if I'd lost my breast when I was still picking fights and throwing myself on the bed, demanding, tell me, like a reckless driver in the dark, bare. It would have been a tragedy then. Can you hear me?
We lost you for a little moment there, but then you came back. So
Okay, there's something going on with my. Okay, returning to the poem. It would have been a tragedy then. Silence strikes me now as the truest answer from what's missing. I can cup the silence in my hand and feel its warmth the way anyone touching me could. Okay. So over the years, I've written a number of poems for various poets through the years. And this is a poem to Conrad Aiken. But it's really a poem for my father, who outlived my mother by 3.5 months. And I found in his things a poem that he had printed out by Conrad Aiken, which he had clearly printed out to make himself feel better. And so this is a poem about coming across that poem again 15 years later. To Conrad Aiken, the little I've thought of you, Conrad, but among Dad's things I couldn't face 15 years ago, here's your poem in the expressive lettering of his daisy wheel printer. Sit with me, Conrad, while I whittle 3 boxes down to one. I've survived the stack of Dad's little paragraphs he wrote to cope when Mother died. Then this surprise poem in its own manila folder. Snow is all about you, but your voice soothes like a lozenge of wan light. Your hands once touched this table and this silver, and I have seen your fingers hold this glass. Conrad, thank you twice. Once for my father, who typed your words of captured grief and with tiny hammers struck them on this page, and once for me. So you can still hear me? I'm starting to doubt. Okay. All right. Here is a poem for my mother, whose birthday is in late November. To note too that my son recently made a little poetry video, a little film that uses this poem. And so I invite you to go to my website and look at the books page. And there's a video that he made of late November. So I'm really delighted with it. Late November. Time slips at twilight, losing its grip on puddles outside the coffee shop window and raggedy blinds across the street. It pulls me out the door for the last measure of light. Here, somewhere near, meaning blinks like a secret animal in its burrow. It's now. It's 50 years ago. Crows start arriving to roost, raucous as usual. Crows, won't you quit? Leave. Let me be. A bird or an answer darts out of the dusk, calling me to dinner, in mother's lost voice. And then this is my last poem, Letter to an Old Friend. I'm baking a blackberry pie today, which means scratches for sure, stains, sweat, maybe you don't miss that, and picking as many berries as I can find, sweet, sour, a tiny bit rotten, that together with sugar, flour, and lemon come out of the oven a velvety purple black I could happily sleep inside forever. Just not yet. I always thought you and I would leave this earthly plane together, cranking a railroad handcar across a Saturday morning cartoon canyon when the bridge goes out and we plunge together as one. But you departed early, and I'm not ready for the long descending whistle, followed by a dirt nap in a pine condo. It's strange on my own. Most of the fog rolled off, and morning breaking clear and warm. And yet I'd call what I'm feeling whole, even without you, my flesh and blood, closest to my heart body part. So stop worrying. I made it to the other side. Thank you so much. Thank you, Donna. Thanks to all the readers. Love you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Beautiful, beautiful poems. That one about your dad just got me. My dad also died 3 months after my mom. Um, I think that's something that happens when couples are together a long time like that from that generation. That one really got me. So thank you. Our next reader is Nathan Spoon, another person whose work that I've admired for a long time. And I love the way that Nathan mixes images. And he takes, I think, I don't want to call them leaps because they're not leaps because they're easy to follow. But the jumps that he makes from idea to idea are always very interesting to me. And I've never heard him read before, so I'm very excited to hear him read this evening. And the line of Nathan's that resonated with me today when I was rereading some poems was, like Don Quixote made a helmet, I wanted to make the books with their sturdy covers a shield. I succeeded almost. Nathan, turning it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm so glad to be a part of this lineup with Subhaga, who's also writing in the for a lot or regularly using the 14 line constraint, and uh, Kathleen, I really love how you play with time, which I feel like is something that I found myself doing a lot, especially in recent years. I do want to do a quick shout out to somebody who's in the audience, Greg Dember, who wrote this great book that I've been recommending when I pop into classrooms, particularly to talk to students, called Say Hello to Metamodernism. Um, and also have two short poems to read by um, uh, two other poets who I really like a lot. And Donna, your comment about the some what you find as surprising movements, uh, sometimes from image to image, which I hope is delightful to you. Um, One way that I've come up with to just sort of loosely give an idea about my poems is I've got a poem by Naomi Shihab, who's from this book, Everything Comes Next, collected in new poems to read. But Naomi is the poet I've known and been friends with for the longest. I guess about 30 years at this point. We started off as snail mail pen pals, and I got a postcard from her just a couple months ago, but we do more emailing at this point. And then the other poet is John Ashbery. So I'd kind of, like to at least fantasize that if Naomi Shihab Nye, one of the kindest and most sincere and generous people that I've ever met, and somebody who's a huge role model for me as a human being, um, living on planet Earth at this particular time. Um, and John Ashbery, um, who wrote wildly messy poems with very sort of fractured um, and I'm not really sure. I wonder what somebody else would say about his usage of language. Like he was always messing around and playing, and some examples come out on what I've got, but to read by him. But this is a poem called "How to Paint a Donkey" by Naomi Shihab Nye. It's an older poem of hers that I want to say. She said the head was too large, the hooves too small. You might be hearing my bird in the background. Sorry about that. She said the head was too large, the hooves too small. You could clean your paintbrush, but you couldn't get rid of that voice. While they watched, you crumpled him. Let his blue body stain your hands. You cried when he hit the can. She smiled. You could try again. Maybe this is what I unfold in the dark, deciding for the rest of my life that donkey was just the right size. And this is actually, I believe, the last poem written by John Ashbery. He died on September 3rd, and this was written on August 25th of 2017, and was afterwards published in Harper's Magazine. It's called Climate Correction. So what if there was an attempt to widen the gap, reel in the scenery? It's unlike us to reel in the difference. We got the room in other hands to exit like a merino ghost. What was I telling you about? Walks in the reeds. Be contumely about it. You need a chaser. In other words, persist, but rather a dense shadow fanned out, not exactly evil, but you get the point. And I just love how the use of the word contumely as if it's a noun rather than an adverb, I think um, is a nice touch to that poem. Um, so good job, John Ashbery, wherever you are. Um, so I've got some poems to read from my still new collection that came out this past August called The Importance of Being Feeble-Minded. And this poem is called Ask Me Later. It was also included in an anthology called Love is for All of Us, edited by James Cruz and his husband, Brad Peacock. And it has poems by some of my favorite poets like Carl Phillips and Naomi Shihab Nye and Dana Smith and so forth. But this poem is called Ask Me Later. What is the difference between trees and clouds when my present is the past to my future? This seeing that I am turns the world as round as any star and as round as the space stars hang in. If you close your eyes, you will find me resting on the garden of your chest. If you ask me anything, I will answer truthfully. Then I will become the object of your dreams, the way you have been the object of mine. Walking around, I look for you. Sitting, I feel so embarrassed and my face feels flushed. You are unaware of the effect you have on me, despite my vastness. I suppose it makes sense to be both complete and completely lost as you do your thing while stars do what they do too. And Donna, by way of introduction, read some lines from this poem that I'd already flagged to read. You can see my little um, tab there, so I'm not making it up. Um, uh, but this poem is called Be a Monster. Um, and I always read it because my spouse, Jamie, like I'll talk about how I want to read the poems that I feel sorry for, that I think they're nice ones, but I have not gotten around to reading. And then my spouse Jamie always says, make sure to read, one of your hits. So this is one that does seem to go over well, and this is Bee Monster. All mouth, out of orbit, due to an insatiable need to be orbited. At some point, there are clouds or waves filled with the foul kelp of cornering questions. Like a black hole, yeeting a star through space, it was real when Monster queried, why do you think you carry a small stack of books with you? Out of orbit is perhaps a phantasmagoria of blankness. It was real when the foolishness I was meant to feel oozed from the kelp instead. What I carried out of my own need was innocuous enough. It felt how pages smelled as I turned them. Like Don Quixote made a helmet, I wanted to make the books, with their sturdy covers, a shield. I succeeded, almost. Almost, except an impulse rose as I walked starrily away from Monster. Almost, except it is important to protect what I was, or it is impossible. I'm butchering my own poem. I knew I would do it. Uh, thank you, dyslexia. Almost, except it is impossible to protect what I was protecting indefinitely. Naivety that is ready to crumble does. When it crumbles, its pieces fall into a womb where the thing most feared gestates. All mouth, all hunger, all claw, all tooth, all stir of disorder, I now will be, hidden and large, large, large as the thick-haired ocean of space. This poem is called A Candle in the Night, um, and um, um, adding it into the mix of what I have to read because it sort of makes it recycles an image from View Monster. So this is called A Candle in the Night. Stone is tender to lichen. Lichen is tender to the earth and its other inhabitants. What are you and I tender to? When a black hole swallows a star, it must do so tenderly, since a universe hinges on tenderness. At midnight, your candle burns with tenderness, dreamlike, in an amber votive, its flame flickering tenderly. And this poem is called Cuddly and Camo. And I guess you could think about climate correction, uh, um, more, less how to paint a donkey and more climate correction with this one. Here comes rain on our roof. It stays just long enough to tickle me into writing this. It stays just long enough for everybody to get into a pair of PJs, silk cotton blend, and then goes poof. At our best, we exude awesomeness. At our best, we are destined to turn pale with the rest of humanity. We are awesome and quick as decomposing sticks at a trail's end. We bend dreams into circles of green zone satire. We have mahogany stuffed in our mahogany ears. To all who are not us, we are sorry to say, you're welcome. Nature, thankfully, adores a rumor, a sunset, a glacier. Clouds glimmer and cast inevitable shadows off the groundswell footrest. I remember you from that time before we first met, when our eyes were wet like summertime coasters as we Ubered noiselessly between pews. The aristocrats are failing to panhandle via email. One aristocrat is sleepily winding through the face of another. Um, and this poem is called The Genie Speaks. I will start again tomorrow after waking under the fingernails of Scheherazade. Small things will become large, and large things will become themselves. It is an old story and familiar, despite how much I hate being divided. Here I am, despite how much I should not be. At this moment, I am reaching far into a page that is oozing like honeycomb. If you will pardon my hyperbole, there are leaves of something that matters. I do not know what, blowing in every direction. At the foretold moment, our other earth opens a secret hand. If there is a purpose, we will know it soon enough, although not knowing feels satisfactory and good, better than good, I am tempted to say to the bees. And that day, the day that that poem was first published in the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series, I was traveling, and then when I looked at my social media, I saw that all kinds of people had shared it around. You know, some folks that I hadn't had the chance to meet, and but I had been reading their poems for years, and one of the writers was the poet Carl Phillips, whose writing I uh, adore tremendously. And underneath his post, somebody had commented, it took a lot of guts to break the stanza that way, um, because the stanza breaks in the middle of the word honeycomb. Um, it's two 7-line stanzas, and it breaks that way, and it just warmed my heart I don't remember who commented that, but I liked it. So gold star to that person. This poem is called Hymn for Lighting the Sky. A bird in the air is a bird in my hair, which makes sense if you think about it, you said. I was holding a shell and looking into the next horizon while turning the page on our old glow. I will text you when I get there, I said. That's perfect, you said. Driving to another town is less of a chore when you love your destination, like I do. Upon arrival, I stopped at a favorite coffee shop and ordered a cup of tea. What will you do? The barista asked. Next, I will disappear, I said. Before you do you mind letting me take your photo for the wall? They said. What wall? I asked. The wall of remembrance, they said. Sure, and I certainly hope to be remembered, I said. I sometimes like the idea of writing something that feels melancholy, but also hopefully leaves the reader or hearer also wanting to say "oh" at the same time. So it's January. I'm gonna read this poem called "To January." Um, and then I've got one more poem to close out. Um, I open my heart to what is here, a sky, two kinds of air and sunlight, an entire world, all the endless things I love and the things I disagree with that somehow remain of interest. I open my heart like you open your own. Still, I would rather not put thought into how I remember hidden lakes. We were sleeping when the fog swallowed the woods behind our house. Now that we are awake, it is as if nothing at all happened. Wait, how am I doing on time? Do I have time to sneak one extra poem in?
Maybe one short one because you're like a little bit over,
Right.
so we want to make sure
Oh,
Cindy gets her time.
sorry. I'll
That's
I'll do
okay.
this the short one for um should have set my my timer. But this is called Yesterday, and all the poems in this collection are just alphabetical by title. There's 100 poems. More than half of them are make use of the 14 line constraint, and this is one of them. Yesterday, we left the party glowing. You forgot your favorite cap, and I, my latest pair of fangs. Now that we are in the real world, filled with things covered in moss and ferns, there are so many waves, it all becomes eventual ocean. This is a long world, especially now that its scope, like a stray pine cone, is happening. Something reminded us both how cheery we can be under circumstances more favorable. We did not know what. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Nathan. Pleasure to hear you. It's fine. I always find to go a little, a little long when we're hearing wonderful poems. We do have one more reader tonight, again, who I've never met in person, I don't think, unless it was maybe at an AWP, but someone whose poems I have read for a long time. And what I love about a lot of Cindy's poems is the way that she has this beautiful, lush language, but then there'll be these little moments of kind of uh like a little bit like a slightly like humorous or even a little bit of sarcastic practicality that'll sneak their way in to some of her poems that really make them shine in a special way. And the line that I chose of Cindy's that resonated with me today was, "These days, sorry, these days I measure time by what is gone. A year ago this, a year ago that. It's the brittle season." Cindy, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Donna. I'm really happy to be here. I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize for my voice. It's great to read with all of you. Subhaga, your sneak peek of your book, and then the Jen poems, which I'm glad I did not have to follow those. Kathleen, I love your book, and I loved hearing you read from it again. And Nathan, I loved hearing you read. I have never heard you read before, so thank you. I'm going to read from my still new book, came out in May, Monster Galaxy. And this book is how I grieved my father, who passed away in 2019. And his death kind of triggered an examination of my childhood and girlhood and an acknowledgement of his flaws. He was someone I had on a pedestal all my life, still do, but I acknowledge his flaws and then my own internal monsters. So you'll journey with me back in time a little bit here. This first poem opens the book, and it is the form is taken from a poem by Betsy Scholl called Genealogy. A partial catalog of my monsters. One of my monsters is the flesh-eating Dimetron. One is a giant chameleon with a 20-foot tongue. One takes the shape of a man with a dirk in my girlhood bedroom. One is the devil Dementia, who took his prehensile tentacle, pried the latch, and emptied my mother. One of my monsters is the good girl. She's huge like a dirigible, huge like the Jolly Green Giant. She can't pick up a pin, can't make a move without wrecking her house. One is the other mother. She slapped her child for biting the baby she nearly bled out to birth. Thus, the monster called shame. One is the crone who begat the bone vampire, who feasts on spine, hip, femoral neck. One is forgetting, the other remembering. She was a girl waving to her father, leaving on a trip, his promise to bring her back little hotel soaps. This poem mentions an artist by the name of Al Hirschfeld. He was famous for his line drawings in the New York Times of famous people, and he would hide his daughter's name, Nina, in the lines, and there was like a number he'd put by his signature that let you know how many Ninas you were supposed to find. Bulletproof. Before my belly was a kiln, before episiotomy, before hemorrhage, years before my brother started spiking his thermos with Absolute, before my mother forgot, before my father died, Al Hirschfeld hid his daughter's name in drawings of Marilyn, Elvis, Ella, Ringo Starr, Nina's concealed in gams and jowls. Harmless insanity, he called it. Long before I left the church, before my children left home. And yes, it's true that the Army used Al's Ninas to train bomber pilots to spot their targets. And yes, I've now lived long enough to know what I didn't know then, that he objected to his art being used to kill people, drew his daughter with no Ninas and named it Nina's Revenge. That some nights my father took off to wander Times Square, eat at an automat, or so he said. And yes, maybe my brother was right that he wasn't always true. But some memories are bulletproof. I look back and long for the Sundays. My father came home with bagels and the New York Times, and we'd spend all morning searching for the Ninas and that week's Hirschfeld drawing. Wanting. Allen Ginsberg took a nap in my childhood bedroom before his reading at the college where my father worked? Did he look in my closet, desk drawers, read my diary, pages of secrets in Catholic girl cursive? When I babysat next door, I looked in the wife's closet, dozens of expensive dresses, tags still on. We were house poor, my clothes homemade. I wanted more. I was infatuated with Twiggy, Cher, Verushka, in love with Sidney Poitier, sang to Sir with love into my hairbrush. I thought I had a voice. I believed I'd be discovered. Instead, Ginsberg in my girlhood bedroom, maybe getting high, meditating, chanting. What is proximity worth by itself? I recall his unkept beard, where he sat at our dinner table, but not a word he said. What happened to that crosshair of time? The next year brought the summer of love, riots, assassinations. My monarchy, 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 vermilion stains on snow-white sheets. When does a childhood end? After 200 clover chains, 50 root beer floats. I find our old house on Zillow, close my eyes, picture my room. Ivory walls, secondhand furniture, floral spread. Oops, there we go. The Cardinal and his song. The Cardinal sang out when I fumbled for my phone, and for the first time I connected this bird with that song. It was like I learned a new word, like a light. I didn't get a picture of the Cardinal. He crossed the street for another tree. Wait, there's something missing in this story. Let me go back and start over. My father never told me he loved me. He could not speak those words. Now I'll know the Cardinal by his song. Okay, this is just one part of the story that was missing. Until you know something, you have no idea. If I said I love you, my father would say, right back at you. Until the day he died, I'd hoped he'd say, I'm sorry, but part of this story is still missing. For a moment on the sidewalk, when I connected the Cardinal with his song, I wondered, is this what could have been? This felt like walking on the edge of an envelope. So I'm afraid it just added a little blood to this story. Make no mistake, from here on out, I'll know him by that song. What else have I missed? Hold on, let me go back. I need to start. The title of this poem comes from a definition of a shadow that was in a, like a Wikipedia article sort of geared toward children. This patch where the light cannot reach. I see a candelabra of branches or birds crossing landscapes, flickering above fences, laying rails down on so white snow, on cold, so cold, that tatted freight train flashing past, shadowboxing tunnel, trestle approaching Minneapolis or any city's welcome mat of skyscraper penumbras. I see if I sit on a park bench in memory of a late afternoon in winter, black stripes like a zebra on the loose, and a can of pop someone left, its dark ellipse, its crush. I see ducks casting over the iced mill pond, below the malto meal plant, low banks of stubble and freeze, shadow of daddy longlegs. Oh, to be a thing that doesn't subscribe to age or gender. I tissue its delicate legs, I crush. There was supposed to be a father in this poem. All right, I'm going to go to self-portrait as daytime television. It's like the days sped away, and now here I am, left with the memory of Morticia Adams twirling her long black tresses. It's as if I lost my baby brother the day he toddled into the bee's nest, and not years later, after 100 benders ruined his heart. It's as if the hours sped away, and here I am, left with the memory of JFK and me weeping over pictures of Jackie and Look asking, how could she marry Ari Onassis? It's as if my half century of raising kids turned into one day, and now I'm left with the memory of the spearmint my mother planted behind our house. It's like some days got stuck. Here I am again in the TV room, dark shadows and the red wall-to-wall shag, while others snuck away. It's as if I lost the diary with the blue cover, the lock, the key, and now I'm left with the memory of my father, forever holding my brother, running across the lawn, shouting, "Start the car," and the stupid way the Three Stooges slapped each other silly Saturday mornings in black and white. Okay. This poem is based on a poem by Susan Rich, based on and inspired by. The poem is called Boketo, which is about learning a new word. A Glakewiff. Outside my window, men are repainting the crosswalk, putting new lines over old lines. I learned a new word today, an old English word, a Glakewiff, a monster woman, troll lady, wretch, hag. Think the grand high witch of all the world. Think Grendel's no-name mother. And then I learned that this word is the feminine form of a Glaika, a hero, a valiant warrior. Why am I surprised? I know these tropes, the monster mother, the sexless crone, toothy, bald, clawed, toeless child hater, child eater. If all witches are women, as Roald Dahl wrote, then I claim that pedigree. But explain why gender makes me witch, not warrior, hag, not hero. What patriarchal alchemy creates monsters out of what I'm supposed to be versus what I am? I've tried to be good, to exist between the lines, yet look at me, my galaxy of monsters. So just read one more. And this poem, so for many years in the month of April, National Poetry Month, I would do a poem a day with Jennifer Martelli and January O'Neill. And there was an article in Yahoo News about a woman who sadly was swallowed by a python when she went to check on her cornfield in Thailand. And we each wrote a poem about this. It sort of became a prompt for all of us. So this is mine. And thank you all for being here. It's just been a wonderful venue for us to read. Thank you. Thank you, Donna, for doing this. The woman who swallowed a python. A woman went into her cornfield and swallowed a python. The cobs were frightened. Even wild boars ran away. Inside every woman, there are monsters. A woman can swallow and swallow. She can choke down her truth for 100 reasons. Unzip her and meet the beasts. Follow my footsteps. Here are the things you will need: flashlight, slippers, machete. Come alone. If you're lucky, you will find her. There will be questions. Can a woman choke down shame? Can a woman choke down her bones, her mind? There will be speculation. Who swallowed whom? Is there a woman inside every monster or monsters inside every woman? What if both things can be true? A reticulation of wrinkles and collagen and faux pas, fear and ferocity. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank all four of you. Your poems were wonderful. Your readings were wonderful. And what a balm to sit and be able to hear you this evening. Bring us a little bit of joy with your words. Before I shut the recording off and sign us off for the evening, I do hope you'll come back and see us for our next reading on March 26th, which will have Holly Carroll, Daniel Lassell, Jason B. Crawford, Jane Zwart, and Robbie Nestor, all reading from their new books. So I'd love to see you again. And if you know someone that missed tonight's reading that you think would love it, it will be on YouTube probably by tomorrow on our YouTube channel. So thank you again so much for giving up part of your evening to be here tonight. And thank you to all of our readers for their words and their time. I'm going to turn the recording off. Good night. And then I will hopefully see you in March.